The real learning comes with doing. You can read every single book and attend every single course, but if you don't pull the trigger and actually move forward, you're not an investor and you don't do property. Some agencies, however established they are, just don't know how to handle the likes of a HMO, whether that's a small or a large HMO. I still learn something new every single day. I still make mistakes. I refine my process every single time I do a new deal, and every deal I do is different. One of the things that I've learned over the years of being in business is you have to focus on the things that give you energy and the things that you do enjoy doing, and outsource everything else. If it's not your strength, then that doesn't matter. You can actually bring other people in to fill those roles and focus on the things that you enjoy doing, because ultimately, if you enjoy doing it, you will be successful.
Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Property People. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Hayley Andrews. Hayley, how are you today?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good. Just a very quick intro before we get into it. Hayley, you are the co-founder of Your Dream Freedom Empire training organization and CEO of several businesses. A professional property investor. We've just been speaking a little bit earlier, and you like to get on site a lot, and something that I'm not as big a fan of, so we'll get into that as well. But an investor, a mentor, a trainer, and a coach. Most recently and famously, an angel on Property Elevator.
Famously, is it?
It's on Sky
yes,
TV.
I am, yeah.
So we've got lots to cover. Because I think, as well, I mean, I don't really like to make it into a deal, but I've been mentioning it. There's not a vast amount of women in property, so I'm always really keen and excited to actually find people that are doing really good stuff, in the hope that inspires other women to also follow suit. So I'm really excited to hear a little bit more about you and your story. But if you don't mind, we can start right in the earlier days, and I can find out a little bit more about who were you at school, who was Hayley at school, what type of person were you, and did you always think that you'd be in property?
Okay, right. So this is personal. I was a bit of a rebel at school, actually. So I was good at school, but I got bored very easily. I would then start playing up, or most of the time just grab my my button to say that, yes, you're there, and then I would kind of toddle off and go find something else to do. I did very well at school, but I didn't really enjoy it. If I wasn't interested in a topic, I would lose interest very quickly, and the motivation just wasn't there. And I found that throughout my life, actually. So property is the only thing that's ever really kept me interested for since 2002. So a good couple of decades, and everything else has kind of come and gone very quickly, 12 months, and I'm bored. And so I move on very quickly. But yeah, so no, property wasn't something that I thought that I would go into. I didn't continue with my A-levels through school. I went straight into an apprenticeship. The classroom kind of environment really wasn't for me, and I needed to find new ways of learning. I love learning. I do now to this day. I'm qualified in so many different things, but I've never been one to kind of sit in a classroom or be told what to think or do or say.
Right. So a little bit of a rebel, questioning authority.
Yeah.
And you didn't complete your A-levels. You just went straight into the world of work.
So I did, but I did it through an apprenticeship.
Right.
So I did it through higher education, through working at the same time, and then studying outside of that. And I've continued that as well through my life. So I do have the qualifications, and I did get the grades, but I not the conventional way.
And what was the apprenticeship in?
Leisure and tourism.
Oh, okay, very nice.
Background.
And so that sounds like a different path to property. So what was it that attracted you to that in the first place, and why did you pivot into property eventually?
So Leisure and tourism, really, because I like data. Data doesn't lie. And I liked understanding the movement of people and their behaviours and all things like that. And that was really why I went down that route. I liked comparing the data to actually behaviour and recognizing patterns and all things
Wow.
like that. So while it wasn't actually, anything to do with property, I've brought that kind of data research and, watching people behavior and all things like that through into my business. So it's actually been a really good skill. And I do a lot of serviced accommodation as well. So it really helps because
Right.
I know how to research, data, hotels opening up within an area, what to look for, how to do competitive pricing, all things like that is something, I've been doing for many, many years. So
Quite analytical
very,
by naturally.
yeah.
And
Only if I'm interested in the
yeah.
topic. But yes.
Well, I think that's quite interesting actually, because a lot of people at school they like, I mean, famously from we're in East London right now, Alan Sugar, was not left school at 16,
Yeah.
and was incredibly successful nevertheless. So it doesn't. I mean, what is your take on school in general right now? And would you encourage kids to go to university, or would you encourage them to if they didn't necessarily want to become a brain surgeon or a solicitor where you needed certain academic qualifications, would you encourage them to not go down the university route?
I think it's each to their own, isn't it, really? I mean, at the end of the day, it depends on the individual. Do they thrive in that environment and are they enjoying it and getting something out of that education? I have a 14-year-old son and I hope that he goes to university just for the experience. But does he need to in order to be successful? Absolutely not. I didn't, and I have lots of people that work for me, with degrees and masters and things like that, and I don't have it, but I'm successful.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
think it depends on the individual. I don't think that there's a right or wrong way. It comes down to you. What do you want to achieve? What path are you taking? And if university is going to get you there and get you, the qualifications you need in order to progress within your career, then do it.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, where did you grow up out of interest?
So I grew up in the Black Country. Do you know the Black Country?
Black Country,
So
no.
Tipton. Do you know Tipton?
Tipton rings a bell.
Yeah.
I'm pretty good with my geography generally.
Yeah.
Go and give me a little bit more.
So it's just north of Birmingham.
I was going to say
Or
Shropshire
northwest,
way.
northwest
Is
west of Birmingham.
Is that Shropshire?
It's not too far away, but no,
Okay.
it's not.
I was gonna. I
West
should
Bromwich.
have thrown it out there, but
West Bromwich,
West Bromwich, yeah.
not too far from there.
So have you travelled from there today?
Yes, yeah. Well, not there, but within that area, yeah.
Very good. And now so tell us a little bit about the journey. So the transition going from the leisure into property. What was it about property that caught your attention?
So as I said, I started buying property in 2002, and I kind of became an accidental landlord.
Right.
So I come from a council estate. And I never really had much. So every single penny I had, I saved and put down on on the next property and the next property. But the first property I actually purchased became a buy-to-let when I moved into my husband's house. We moved in together. And I was hooked from that point, really. I thought, oh, this is good. I did it wrong for many years because I'd had no education around property or anything like that, other than watching, the usual property channels, and which has zero information for you, unless it's Property Elevator, of course.
Yes, of course. We were talking about Homes Under the Hammer just before we started.
Yeah.
I remember there's a property. My best friend's dad, who was a big inspiration to me, he used to talk about that show and how they used to miss out loads of the numbers.
Yeah.
And it was really dangerous for people.
I think so.
And they haven't changed it much since, and they're still like saying, and so this is the profit, and they're like, well, what about the stamp duty? What about the finance costs? What about this, that, and the other? And it is dangerous. So you made a few mistakes, bought a few properties, all within a local area, or did you go kind of further afield?
Yeah, no. So I stayed. I I started in Tipton and then moved into Dudley, Cosley, Sedgley, which are all kind of
Right.
surrounding. You can drive to
Yeah.
all of them within, 30 minutes. So I stuck with that area. But again, because I'm a research freak, I actually did research the whole of the UK. But initially, it was just a pension plan for me. From me jumping from one job to another, I wasn't really interested in staying anywhere, and the pension plan was just something I was thinking about. So the idea when I first started out was really to just keep buying properties, paying down the mortgages over a 25-year period, and then when I came to retirement, to actually just have an unencumbered portfolio and the income off that. That was the idea, but as I said, I did it all wrong. So I built a really good sized portfolio, just the conventional way. I was on good income. My husband was as well. So, from a mortgageability point of view, we were very good. And we were repaying all of the mortgages, but they wasn't really cash flowing. So we were asset rich, but cash poor. So we didn't focus on cash flow or anything like that in the beginning. So the first 4 or 5 years, we were just collecting properties organically, saving up the deposit money, going on to the next one and the next one. And then we realised that property was what we wanted to do, but what we'd been doing was not really that. It wasn't correct, and we wasn't leveraging properly, or we wasn't on the right products and things like that. So we'd very much looked at education and how do we get ourselves into a position of being able to make money out of property, and good solid money. Not just kind of a pension plan. So we did Rich Dad Poor Dad. You've probably heard of Robert Kiyosaki. And we learned all the fundamentals of leverage and things like that. And then we started doing HMOs. So as cash flow was what we needed fairly quickly, because of us, my income being, slashed and my husband losing his entire income. We started focusing on HMOs because we wanted to replace our income as quickly as we possibly could.
Very challenging. And, this is I think, life of any investor or entrepreneur, you're going to have all sorts of stuff thrown at you, and you never know what it is or where it's going to come from. But being able to have that resilience and an ability to pivot and adapt, I think is what gives you that longevity in life in general. So kind of massive well done for being able to find a way through it and make it work for you. And HMOs were the solution: high yielding, income producing assets, positive cash flow. When you were looking at these deals, being as analytical as you are, were you looking at kind of a minimum return metric, and was it profit on cost of the project? Was it return on your own capital and equity? Was it a minimum income? How were you looking at these deals to work out whether they were good or not?
So the first thing I always do is have a look at the current supply and the demand, and I have a look at who am I going to be renting the properties out to, etc. And I drill down exactly down to who I will be renting those properties out to. I very much buy to order as well, so I do the research first and then go and buy the properties to fill that order type of thing. But in the beginning, we had a project budget of around £250,000, and that was for you 4 to 6 bed or people HMOs. We were refinancing within 12 months and pulling all of our capital out and then going again.
Oh wow, that's the dream.
That's the dream. Yeah.
That's the dream.
So negotiation's one of my favourite things to do, and I've always been really good at negotiation. And I was negotiating genuine below market value deals, and I love that. I love negotiating, and it's all about buying right, isn't it? If you can buy right, you give yourself options. And
they say you make your. It's one of the first rules that I learned when I started out 20 years ago. Is you make your money on the way in.
Make your money in the buy. Yeah. Absolutely.
And so
I mean, finance was a lot easier then as well than it is today. So
it was a bit of form filling and very few questions
and
compared
there
to
was
now.
interest-free credit cards for like 18 months and things like
Very
that.
high leverage, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so
100%.
refurbishments, things like that would all go on the credit card, and you know, and it was fairly, well, not easy. Nothing is easy. I wouldn't say it was easy, but it was a lot easier than it is today because finance was very much available for you.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. I mean, right now, I've got my own finance brokerage, and in general, you'd think that bridging, okay, like you can have bad credit, you can have. I've got a couple of clients right now. It's a tough time. We've just come out of COVID. We've had all these issues, and I don't know, 90% of the bridging lenders say no, they've got bad credit. So, well, that's why we're coming to you in the first place.
Exactly.
Like, what did you expect they were going to have?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a very difficult. Always there's lots of problems, difficult problems to navigate. It's just depending on which decade you're in, I guess. There's different stuff going on. So you were buying these houses around £250,000. Is that all in cost? Is that including
No, that was
just
all
the
in.
acquisition?
That was the project cost. So we were buying it around 140,
Right.
doing a renovation and then refinancing.
How for HMOs? How important are like ensuite facilities to you? Did you find that they were?
Well, back then we didn't do en suites.
Right.
We just looked for 3 or 4 bedroom houses with 2 or more bathrooms and then a spare bathroom downstairs. For as many facilities as we possibly could find. But we really sourced the properties that were already fit for purpose, but we were buying residential homes and turning them into HMOs.
Right.
Of course, it's all different now. It's a different market to what it was back then. And you do have to be, well, majority of the Instagram-worthy HMOs that you see now are like boutique hotels, aren't they?
Yes, very much so.
And while I do that, it's very much audience specific. So it depends on the area, it depends on the return. So yes, I mean, en-suites rooms always rent out better, but it's if the cost of putting an ensuite in isn't actually going to show you the return you need, then you don't do it. It depends on the audience, it depends on your return on that investment.
Absolutely. And this flurry of properties that you were buying, like how many? When did you know when to stop? Are you still going?
Still buying.
You're still going. So
Yeah,
when did you buy your first one? First HMO?
2002. Oh, sorry. First HMO was about 4.5 years after that. So,
Okay, so you've been doing it quite some time.
Yeah.
Seen a lot of the regulations change over
Yep.
time as well. A lot of Article 4s coming in almost everywhere. And if you're still doing them now, are you doing them generally outside of Article 4s, or are you finding ways to get planning in Article 4 areas?
So, I mean, normally we would. Well, it doesn't matter. Article 4 really is just a planning restriction. At the end of the day, if you've got the relationships with the local council and the planning department and they've been working with you for over a decade, then they can see that you've got good quality accommodation and it's what the area needs. So I have purchased properties that are some of the areas that I've been operating in for over a decade are Article 4 now, and I have purchased and converted HMOs after Article 4 has come in. So I think if you're brand new starting out, going into HMOs, perhaps stay away from Article 4 because it is, of course, another hurdle that you have to jump and you do need planning permission. However, it's not impossible. Even doing rent-to-rent, I've gone into different areas of the UK where Article 4 direction is in place and I've got a temporary change of use.
Oh, wow.
So it is possible. It comes down to the business case. It comes down to you, your experience, and obviously the audience. Who are you going to be putting that property to? What's it going to be surfacing?
Yeah, you've mentioned that a few times in terms of start with the end in mind. Who's the customer? Is it going to be? Is there a big general hospital there that they're probably going to be the people that are renting the stuff, young doctors coming in, or is it a university where probably it's going to be students or middle of a town? So you always start there and then kind of work your way of what are they paying for this? What kind of what sort of facilities are they going to be expecting?
Yeah.
And then you create a product accordingly.
Yeah.
Like I say, sometimes it's a boutique hotel. I've done some. I'd like to think some nice designs, and whenever I've put students in them, they've had a really good time. They thought they were in some sort of like footballers' hotel, hotel penthouse or something, and they've ended up trashing it. Which I've had house parties when I was at university, so it was some other landlord. Maybe it's just karma coming to bite me, but
Maybe karma's the ultimate bitch.
Exactly, literally, I couldn't agree more. So I'm not complaining. Well, of course, it's when it happens to you, it's a bit of a pain in the ass. But we've got
That's why you're
deposits.
insured.
Yeah, well, we got deposits and stuff. So we make sure that we do our best to get the money back. It doesn't always come back, and we take a hit. But that's the beauty of HMOs as well, because you've got the profit margin at the end. You might take a hit that year. But do you have students, professionals? Do you have like a housing association or kind of vulnerable tenants? Do you do across the whole spectrum in terms of your end user?
No, so we don't do students, although I get approached quite a lot for student accommodation for some of the properties that I have and operate around universities or colleges with university status, and international student. What's the word I'm looking for? International students coming into the UK.
Yeah.
So I do get approached for it, but it's something that I've never gone down the student route. I don't do assisted living or charities or anything like that. I've always kind of stuck with you blue collar workers and you professionals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I've actually gone down that route as well. My thing was all students to begin with. I just thought like the idea of the high demand. If it was in a certain catchment area, you're always going to get the students coming in year after year after year to be next to the campus. And it was also this cyclical thing where you just knew that it was going to be occupied for at least 11 months of the year, and you didn't have to pay the council tax, especially one less bill as an HMO. I loved the idea of it. As it turned out, they don't keep the house or the properties, even like brand new. I'm certainly not a slumlord by any stretch of the imagination, but they didn't look after them. So I started to pivot a little bit from one property to the next to private or professional tenants rather. And I found that they treat it like a home. They're more mature.
They stay longer.
And yeah, it's a completely different kind of profile, tenant profile. Yeah. And I personally enjoy using them a lot more. But you mentioned also serviced accommodation. And you mentioned rent to rent. So do you do rent to rents as well? And do you do service accommodation like short lets?
So, I mean, when I first started doing HMOs, because cash flow was what we needed, we did actually do rent to rent, adopting the HMO strategy as well as our buy and renovate, rent refinance model. So while I don't need to focus on the cash flow so much now, as in I've got good healthy cash flow, I'm happy with it and it's growing organically, year on year. It's not a driving factor for me. However, I still do rent to rent and use it to test new areas for
That's clever, yeah.
Yeah, so I'll do a rent to rent really just to assess the area, the quality of tenants, because while you can do all of the due diligence and you can collect the data and you can run the numbers, until you actually put that property live, you don't really know what 100% what you're going to get. So to minimize my risk when I'm moving into a new area, I will adopt the rent to rent strategy. If it's not really a strategy, isn't it? It's a way of acquiring a property, I guess, but not a strategy. And then I'll either do HMOs or serviced accommodation with that.
And if you had to, in terms of your portfolio, how it's split, is it more serviced accommodation, more HMO?
I've got a mixed bag in my portfolio. Yeah, so I've got standard buy-to-lets, which I do vulnerable tenants and LHA in my standard buy-to-lets. Okay. I've got smaller HMOs, 4 to 7, and then I've got HMOs as big as 23, 24, which are factories that we've converted. But I do commercial.
As well?
Yeah, so I've got lots of commercial properties on across various different, schools, restaurants, entertainment quarter. So yeah, I do a bit of everything.
So I'm gonna try to divide your opinion, or at least it's like picking a favorite child, unfortunately, but we're going to try this game anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So if you had to do only HMOs or service accommodation, which one would you choose?
So I've been known for the HMO queen for a really long time. However, serviced accommodation is as I like serviced accommodation because it's more difficult to set up, but you can see real data exactly live as it's happening on a day-by-day basis, and the profit from serviced accommodation, if you actually do it correctly and you've chosen the right area and you've got your systems and your automation and your people behind those systems in place, it makes a hell of a lot more money, 4 times more than a HMO.
Yes, I've experienced exactly the same.
And there's no tenants. So if they don't pay, they don't stay. You can kick them out.
Yeah, they pay up front. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I know. I'm a massive advocate for the service. I'm actually surprised how well they do. I'm like, where did everybody stay until Airbnb and all these other various platforms set up? It's completely crazy. But it's proved to be very, very highly yielding, profitable. But you do have to have a lot of good management systems. I personally give it to a management company, and they charge me upon performance, and I'm very happy with that. And so the service accommodation and HMO. What about, you mentioned commercial as well, which I'm always interested in. Commercial or residential? That old argument. What would you? Which child would you choose?
That one's really difficult.
Really?
To choose,
Harder than the HMO?
Well, because your residential, is your bread and butter. It's coming in, it's there. It's regulated, and the regulations change on a regular basis. But if you're a professional, you should be looking at that anyway and factoring all of that into your business model. Commercial is, I guess, less, as more hands off.
If it goes well.
If it goes well. I guess the downside of commercial is, of course, you can have properties sat empty for a long time. It takes longer to find the tenants and the right tenant as well, whereas you don't get that with residential. However, when you do put a good solid tenant in place, they stay for a hell of a lot longer, and they're normally on FRI leases. So from an investment point of view, once it's tenanted, it's very easy to just
you've got SA
let
up
that
here
go.
in terms of management, and you've got the commercial property all the other end where you literally have to just let it go.
Yeah.
And then going back to your agency, do you manage even the commercial? Everything's kind of in-house, so you do the residential stuff?
Yeah.
And did you set that up from scratch, or did you buy into somebody else's?
No, so I set it up. I say me and my husband, so it's not just me. So we set it up from scratch, and it really came out of the HMOs, really. So I self-managed all of the buy-to-lets, and that's fairly simple to do. I was doing those alongside my job, and I didn't really, have any issues with them. It's good solid tenants in there, and the properties were done to a good standard, and other than occasionally having to answer the phone or chase rent, I didn't really have to be too hands-on with a standard your family homes. When I moved into HMOs, I thought, well, I can continue to self-manage. It's not that bad, and but I didn't realise how different that would be. So that was a big mistake of mine, and I did end up, creating a full-time job for myself, managing the HMOs. We grew our HMO portfolio very quickly with both the buy and own and the rent-to-rent as well, and it was a full-time job. So we then outsourced it, but then occupancy levels dropped off, rents were, coming in late and all things like that. There were issues with the property, minor maintenance problems were not being addressed. It was awful. So we took it back in-house out of necessity more than anything else. But I think with everybody I employ, I've done all of their jobs. And I think that really helps because, even down to cleaning, when I first started out, I'd do absolutely everything myself, and it came from necessity because we didn't have the money to pay anyone originally. And then, so I think it gives me a level of respect for each individual role and the role that they play and how important their role is as well. But yeah, I was very much a roll your sleeves up, filling skips, stripping walls, doing materials project management and knocking walls out. I was very hands-on in the beginning, and straight through from doing the actual projects themselves and then managing the properties on the back end of that and the tenants as well. So we outsourced it, thinking that we're in a position now where the portfolio can pay for management, and we still got our our healthy cash flow. But it went wrong very quickly, and we had to take it back in-house, and that's when I set up the management company and train people to do it how I would actually do it.
Yeah, and that's I think that's a sensible step, and it's quite a common problem that what people have had when they've got sizable portfolios.
I think it's one of the most important parts of your team. People talk about power teams and who does what, and they quite often don't speak about the management element on the back end of whatever product they're putting to that market. And it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's buy-to-let, serviced accommodation, HMOs, student accommodation,
Yeah,
assisted living,
absolutely.
it doesn't matter. It comes down to how effective that management company is, and do they know how to actually let and manage those types of properties. And you'd be surprised, actually.
Yeah.
Some people and some agencies, however established they are, just don't know how to handle the likes of a HMO, whether that's a small
Absolutely.
or a large HMO. So we decided that we would train people to do it how we would do it and how we were effectively and successfully doing it prior to us actually handing it over to someone else. But yeah, I'd always say the first people you interview when you're moving into a new area is your management companies. And we've got a whole set of questions that we ask them.
Like, for example,
Well, we've got a list of 50 questions for you to
I mean, one of them, I straight off the bat is, 'cause I started out as an estate agent,
Yeah.
and if an estate agent hasn't managed an HMO before, I just wouldn't even go near them anyway, because they just haven't got a clue how to do it. I work with I self-manage a few units because they're kind of close to me, but I generally give it out to agents. Because I've been an agent, I feel like I can at least find the best ones.
Yeah.
But even then, you find some inefficiency. But I feel like I know how to handle them, or I can get the best out of them at the very least. But in general, I'll always use ones that have got a lot of stock very similar to mine, or a significant amount of stock similar to mine, so I know that they know how to manage it. Because every time I've tried to do it any other way, it just falls flat on its face, and it's
I
terrible.
think there's more and more agents now that obviously know the strategy well and know the compliance and the management element and how much more hands-on it is to actually take care of a HMO than that of a standard buy-to-let. So, but when I started out, of course, there wasn't that many about, and you would be just going to, your standard high street lettings agency and hoping that they understood what a HMO was, So other than student accommodation, half of them didn't know, what it was or how to rent it or how to manage those tenants. And it is much more in depth, much more hands-on, and you do become a social worker.
There's an element of that.
Yeah, it's much more involved. I don't do any of the management myself, and I would never self-manage ever again.
Do you manage other landlords, or is it just for your own stock?
We do manage some other landlords, some of our internationals that are investing locally. We will take their properties under our management, but we don't really push that as a business. It's more there to manage my portfolio.
Got it. Makes sense. So mentioning kind of international investors, the UK to me is one of the best property markets in the world, and I've had a little bit of a dabble in other places, and I was brought up here. I truly believe in London and the rest of the country for different reasons. I think the southeast has kind of very good, strong capital growth, horrendously terrible yields, and you go to the north if you want, the inverse kind of returns. So it's a great market. What is it? What characteristics and what sort of things do you? Why do you find that international kind of investors are attracted to the UK, and how do you go about helping them?
So I've been an international mentor now for over a decade, and I've gone to many different countries, speaking within those countries, and of course then mentoring individuals on how to invest here in the UK property market. So when I first started out with internationals becoming a mentor, it was really about making sure that they could move money in and out of the country efficiently, making sure that they could leverage. So I think the reason that the UK is such a hotspot for international investment is you do get good yields. There is money available for you to invest through UK limited companies here in the UK. And you've got good solid income as well. So there's a housing shortage, and the population is growing year on year, and there's tax benefits also. I think all of those things mixed in together. But we have actually seen over the last few years some international money move away to different countries. And I think that is down to, of course, the additional stamp duty surcharges that have been put on.
Yeah.
And, of course, then lending interest rates being so high. And as an international, they would always pay higher than, the likes of you and I anyway. So the deals just wasn't stacking up. We get all different types come through. Majority of the people I work with are from Hong Kong.
Oh, wow, nice.
And Sweden and Australia. Those are the kind of three countries that I get majority of the people that come through. But they tend to be investing, some just London based, and that's all they want to do, park their capital and hold it for 20 years. They're not even bothered sometimes if it's rented out. They're very cash rich individuals, and they're not focusing on income. But we get a lot of people that are coming through near retirement age and wanting to move their money here into the UK, especially from Hong Kong, and they're really looking at an income stream.
And are these Hong Kong nationals, or are these expats that have gone over there?
Hong Kong nationals, yeah.
Okay, interesting. And is it through the education business that they come through the mentoring business? That's how you meet these clients in the first instance.
Yeah.
And so with the mentoring that you do, how do you is there a vetting process to make sure that you can actually help somebody? Do you is there a screening process? Do they need to have a minimum amount of capital to be able to really benefit from, because obviously real estate is quite capital intensive. Yep. You teach rent to rent. How does the mentoring work?
First of all, we would qualify them. So we go through a whole questionnaire with them. We'd have several consultation calls. We would look at the time, skill set they have, money they have available. What are they looking to achieve? What's the time frame they're looking to achieve it in? And can we help them, basically? We do rent to rent, which of course is a creative strategy for those that have less capital to get into the property market. However, it's not something that we purely just focus on. We do teach and mentor people that are starting out with just under buy-to-lets. Some are doing lease options, rent-to-rents. Some are doing serviced accommodation. Some of them are doing development. So they all come through at different levels of experience and different requirements as well. So the first initial step is to see how we can help them if they're realistic in terms of what they need to put into the business. And then, of course, if we can deliver.
And is it, and the format of the mentorship, is it one-to-one, or is it in a group environment? It's always one-to-one?
Well, we've got a whole suite of training. So we've got 11 mentors, which are all successful within their own right. So the individual will choose their mentor, and then it's one-on-one mentorship. It would be 3 days where they would come to the UK, and they would spend 3 days with us in our training facility, where we would bring all of the individual members of their team in. We would have pre-vetted those teams so that it's all specific information to their individual circumstances. We get their business set up, so they walk away with a business in a box, sourcing agents throughout the whole of the UK, boots on the ground, and the team to be able to implement whatever strategy it is they're looking to do. And then, of course, the hand-holding from a deal perspective, and any questions, ongoing support from the mentor as well. So.
The Property People podcast is proud to be sponsored by the PLMD Group. The PLMD Group is made up of PLMD Development, PLMD Estate Management, and PLMD Capital. PLMD Group provides expertise in real estate development combined with asset management. Their extensive knowledge of local planning policies have resulted in strong track record turning liabilities into valuable assets. PLMD also help UK and overseas investors looking for value-add properties and ground-up development in the UK in the residential market, built-to-rent sector specifically across London and its suburbs. The group delivers value through a fusion of expertise, innovative design, imagination, and hands-on management and sustainable resources. They're a fantastic group. They have events at their offices. I'd encourage you to reach out to them, find out a little bit more about what they're doing. They have investment opportunities available on FCA regulated crowdfunding platforms. So go check them out and connect with them. Back to the podcast. And you're one of the things that you're into is continuous learning.
Yeah.
And tell us a little bit about how you stay up to date with where should that information be coming from, and what avenues do you go down to make sure that you've got that continuous learning?
I think it's just constantly, you're always researching new things, new strategies, keeping abreast of regulations. I work quite closely with my local council, and I hear firsthand what's going on, whether something's coming into this area or moving away from that one. So I think it's really just about having the conversation, being the go-to person in the area, really asking questions, constantly looking at regulations and things like that. It's just, if you're actively doing it every day, you know, you know if something's changing because you can see that something is changing, So I think if you're on the ground actually doing it, it's not about just keeping, a database of websites that you go and check out.
It's just basically you're in and around the industry,
Yeah.
people that are all talking about what's going to be happening next, whether
You
the rent reform
hear
act's going to happen.
firsthand, you hear firsthand what's going on, and of course then you can research that if you want to. But I think it's important to obviously take information from the right people, which is why I work quite closely with the council, and they quite often feed a lot of information through to me in terms of what's going on locally with planning or things like that, legislation changes. We use quite a lot of our HMOs as properties where people can walk around and have a look at what a HMO looks like from a compliance point of view. We've got our enforcement officers that will walk around with their trainee enforcement officers and things like that. So we're constantly in and around it. So I still very much work, within my business, out of choice, very much so. Genuinely love doing what I'm doing, and if something's coming about, I just know about it. I don't think there's a website I go to find that information.
Because this is there's always this debate about, well, classrooms will only teach you so much, and the only real way is to actually, roll up your sleeves, buy a property, or rent a property to rent it out again. Like, that's the best way. You can read all the books, you can listen to all the podcasts, and the learning really only comes from when you've actually started to get busy with it. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think the education and the theoretical side is really just your foundation, isn't it? It's for you to have enough information to actually move forward with a bit of confidence and understand the industry you're moving into. But ultimately, the real learning comes with doing. And you can read every single book and attend every single course. But if you don't pull the trigger and actually move forward, you're not an investor and you don't do property. It doesn't matter how well you can, recall every single word someone said and or every single course that you've done. So I think, the real learning, then there's some stuff you can't teach. there's
Yeah.
even with me as being in the industry for 20 years, I still learn something new every single day. I still make mistakes, and I refine my process every single time I do a new deal, and every deal I do is different.
Always
So
something new. No matter how long you've been doing it, there's always something new that
no
happens.
deal is the same, unless you're just doing standard buy-to-lets and that's all you're doing, which are very similar, aren't they? Everything is different. Every project, every development I do, there's a new problem or something new I've got to solve.
I had something new this week whereby I just find since COVID's happened, I just find delays on everything from building warranty providers, building control, to council departments, to solicitors. I had one this week. It was the first time I get CC'd into a lot of solicitor kind of communications back and forth. And they said, sorry, we can't scan over the documents this week. We'll only have a scanner next week. It was Tuesday. I was like, what?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, it's like these little things. I was like, I've seen it all now. But no, alas, it'll be a long time till we've seen it all. So the next question I had was around the mentees that you've got.
Mm-hmm.
And you must have had quite a good exposure with lots of mentees. Can you describe to us one success story that you are quite proud of?
Does it need to be recent?
No. You can do two if you want. One recent one.
Yeah. There's quite a few that I'm proud of all of them. I think, as I said, to get the education is one thing, but then to have the guts to go out and do it is completely different. So, do I name names or?
If you want to, yeah.
I don't know whether I'm allowed to.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's, whatever you feel comfortable with.
So
this is only between you and me.
So I was on mentorship last week, with a guy from Hong Kong, and I was sat down with the broker. So we were discussing, obviously, his lending capability or things like that for a project he was looking to buy, and the best way of structuring that deal from a finance perspective with the funds he has available and what we're looking to achieve. I had a conversation with the broker afterwards, and we were talking about a guy that came through in 2019, which is quite challenging to come through in 2019. He was an expat and he was living in Australia, and he's doing some really, really big stuff with rent-to-rent at the moment by taking on large blocks. So I was quite pleased with that because it wasn't necessarily a strategy that we'd focused on, but it came out of opportunity. He's very well connected. He networks really well. He had the funds available to go out there and do it, and he is actively doing it himself as well. But he's actually gone down this route of rent-to-rent because the opportunity presented itself. And
which he wasn't aware of that it was available to him until...
It wasn't a strategy that he was focusing on.
Right.
We always make sure that everyone knows, all of the different types of way of creating a win-win situation and a good deal. So even if you're only focusing on development or only focusing on buy-to-let, we would always make sure you understand the fundamentals of each individual strategy. And the reason we do that is so that you can be creative and you can recognise opportunity and take that, take action if the opportunity presents itself, even if you're not looking for that particular strategy. So yeah, he did really well, and I quite like that one because it's super creative, not something I expected from him, and yeah, he's doing really, really well. So.
And in terms of time is the most valuable commodity, how do you, with having multiple different businesses, how do you manage your time? Because you've got the mentees on one side, and then you've got the investments on the other side. You're growing the portfolio on the other side.
So I work a lot. So I'm a mum first and foremost. That's it's always been about time, and I think I struggle quite a lot with the hustle and always wanting to be doing something and feeling like I always should be doing something. But I do have that choice to step away, and I have a phenomenal team. So when I do get to that point, I kind of do step away a little bit. But I've always said I'll continue doing what I'm doing until my son, leaves home or goes to university. And then I think I'll start slowing down. But while he's still at school, between the hours of school, that's all.
Then you
I
may
do,
as well
yeah.
be keeping busy.
Yeah, and I'm super strict with myself as well. So, while I'm, very analytical, and I'm also really strict, I hold myself accountable. So I book everything in my diary down to, time with myself, if that's what I need to do. So, and I do that on a regular basis. So my diary always has something in there. And I always make sure that I do what is in that diary as well. I am very much a self-motivated person.
You're not a procrastinator?
No, never been. If I say I'm going to do it, I do it. What's the
You do
point?
come across that way.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm quite a stubborn person, and I, I just get on and do it. I'm a hard worker. I've always been a hard worker. I've always been a grafter. I'm not afraid of getting my hands dirty. As I said, I have a massive amount of respect for all of my team because I've played their role in some shape or form throughout my career. And even to this day, I'd still quite happily jump. I miss that side of it. I miss the hustle and bustle, I guess, more so now. I've always held myself accountable. I've always been an ambitious person. And if I say I'm going to do something, I'll do it. And I'll do it the best of my ability. And so I always give, 100%. And if I don't bother at all. There is no in between with me. All or nothing.
I think you need to have that to be able to achieve the stuff that you've achieved across multiple different entities. I think going internationally as well.
Yeah, I think in this industry, you do have to be super strict with yourself, and you do have to hold yourself accountable because life gets in the way, but life will always get in the way. So if you've got a goal and you want to achieve it, then only you can make that happen. So I've never been one to kind of say, well, I came from a council estate, or or I didn't have any money, or something, my husband was ill, and all of that. I've never been that type of person that kind of looks for excuses. In fact, it's the complete opposite. So despite and in spite, I will always do what I was going to do. So very stubborn.
Do you feel you said your son's 14, right?
Yeah.
Do you feel like he's got a similar trait to you, or do you reckon he's completely opposite?
I think he's way beyond me. He's the most phenomenal human being I've ever had the pleasure of knowing, and I must have done something right in my life to deserve to be his mom. He's the most dedicated individual I've ever known.
Is he going to get into property as well, do you think?
I think so.
There's a good chance.
We're very relaxed with him, and he's an awesome squash player. So he's county champion under 13s, under 15s, and pushes the under 17 as well. He will be under 17s, and he did all of that at the age of 13. And he's consistently doing really well within sport. I was very sporty as well, and so was my husband, which I think helps as well, holding yourself accountable.
Interesting. Which sport?
Routine. I was I was very good at lots of sports. I was one of those irritating people that would just go in. People have been doing it for years, and I'd win everything.
Oh my day!
I was really good. But I did figure skating and also cross-country running. And so
it sounds like, it sounds like you really enjoy everything that you do as well.
I do.
And that comes across.
I think that's important. I think one of the things that I've learned over the years of being in business is you have to focus on the things that give you energy and the things that you do enjoy doing, and outsource everything else. If it's not your strength, then that doesn't matter. You can actually bring other people in to fill those roles and focus on the things that you enjoy doing, because ultimately, if you enjoy doing it, you will be successful.
And with the new found fame on Sky TV.
Why does everybody keep saying that?
Well, you're on TV, you know, it's
Well,
like, you know, you've got Alan Sugar and you've got Peter Jones and you've got Hayley Andrews. So this, yeah, why not? How did that come about, and how are you finding it? Are you enjoying it?
yeah, so I absolutely love it. You know, it's when I started out, you know, I had people that invested in me. So you know, I did use angel investors, other people's money, and you know, and they had the faith in me, what I was looking to achieve, and you know, I'm very grateful for those opportunities, and it's so nice to be back in that position. And as I said, and this is one of the reasons I do, you know, the mentoring as well. And I don't do much of it, but you know, I do some mentoring. But I get to be at the beginning again, and I do
Right.
miss that hustle and bustle. I do miss the start and the excitement and the fear, and I don't get that anymore. As in, you know. I know what I'm doing. You know, I understand.
You're in the boring, predictable phase.
Well, nothing's predictable in this industry. It always surprises you in one shape or another. But you get into that problem-solving mindset, and you know, and we can mitigate so much of the risk, but we can never take it away. And we know that with confidence now.
Yeah.
You know, with what we do, and you know, the research that goes up front, and our multiple exits and all things like that. We know that even worst case scenario, it's still going to be a good deal, and we're happy to move forward. Whereas I think when you're first starting out, even though you're told that, you don't know it until you actually do it. And I think even maybe your first 5 or 10 deals, you still kind of
Yeah, absolutely.
apprehensive. And
second guessing yourself, questioning whether it's going to work out. Should I scale it? Was it a fluke? Just these two? Is everything going to change?
Yeah. Did I? You know, you always kind of. I think that's good trait to have, though, to always kind of step back and say, is it the right decision?
Be a little bit paranoid.
The opposite is kind of jumping in and not doing any of it, isn't it? And
Bit too cavalier.
Yeah, I've worked with lots of different types of personalities over the years, and I'd much rather work with someone which is a little bit more cautious than someone that just jumps in. It's much easier to kind of, you know, work that side out than to try and put something right over here where somebody's just jumped into a deal that they can't get out of. So yeah, I'm not sure whether that answered your question. I think we went on to about 25 different questions off the one answer, so I apologise if it hasn't.
No. The investors that you're investing in,
Yeah.
They must love having somebody that is has, you know, as experienced as you are, and has the resources that you have. How have you found it working with those people?
So
Challenging, or because they don't know anything?
Well, no, because you get all different types of people that come through. So you get obviously some people that come through that have found a great deal that perhaps don't have the experience. I do like working with those types of people as long as they're coachable, because you know, you can actually add massive value to that project, and we both profit from it. But then you've got, you know, a lot more hands off if you've got someone that
so it kind of reminds me very much of Dragon's Den. I literally watched every single series of Dragon's Den for many years, and they sometimes get people that really don't know what they're doing, but they've got a really great idea. They're very invested, you know, very investable as well. Very nice people. I think I can work with them. And then you got some people as well that you know what, actually I do know my way, but I just need the money. I really do need some money. Yeah. I could have gone and got it from somewhere else, but actually the money plus the exposure from and the experience of working with somebody that's very established is very appealing. So I'm happy to actually give away a little bit of a premium on what I'd probably get outside of here. So I imagine that you'd probably get a similar kind of wave of different types of opportunities that way.
Yeah, we do. And we get all different types of deals that are coming through as well. You know, from, you know, just a terraced house that's being converted into a 6 or a 7-person HMO, straight through to, you know, development for Travelodge. You know, it is really that extreme and different.
So what's more important, they say, the jockey, are you backing the jockey or the horse? Are you backing the deal, or are you backing the person that's delivering
Always
it?
the person, 100%. Yeah.
That's always the kind of lean.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd rather take a little bit of a more of a riskier deal, but if I know I'm backing somebody that can actually deliver it, I can, rather than oh, that looks like a slam dunk deal, but couldn't work with that person.
Well, even a slam dunk deal in the wrong hands can
exactly.
be, a liability to you. So I think if the person is investable, that's definitely where we start. And I would say if you were to ask every single person on the panel, they would say exactly the same.
That makes sense. And is it like Dragon's Den where you've got a period of due diligence after you kind of agree the deal? There's a period of due diligence afterwards just to make sure actually all the numbers that they've quoted you are legit?
Yeah, and quite often the numbers are not legit. And so we get to see the pack, just before they're walking through the doors. So we get less than 5 minutes to read through, sometimes for like 120 page pack, which is impossible for you to kind of pick up all of the information. But which is why we're allowed to obviously ask questions and get to know the individual better. So it's always kind of subject to the due diligence stacking up. And it has to be as well, because you can't make, I think one of the biggest deals that we offered on Series 6, which is coming out in September, was a £12 million project. You can't offer that type of finance and not do the due diligence.
Of course, you have to have that time and space.
And so we have to take, obviously, the information that's in the pack. We have questions that we can ask, and we have to make a decision based off that and make an offer if we want to. And then after the show, of course, then we would work with the individual, make sure that their numbers are stacking up and it is a good, viable deal, and we can actually move forward. So.
And of course, they edit it down because otherwise. But how long is the average pitch? Is it?
I'd say it's about an hour.
Wow, so you do go into some detail.
They do, and I think they have to edit it down to obviously make good TV, and half the time it's just us arguing on the panel.
Great TV,
but you
though.
can't do that. You can't ask that question, oh, that was a little bit rude, or, we definitely have really good banter behind the scenes. It's a shame they don't show that part of it, actually. I think it would make great TV. But yes, each pitch is probably about 45 minutes to an hour, so you get a good amount of time to be able to ask the questions, and all of the questions we ask, of course, are not aired either.
Yes, of course.
So they just select a few questions, and obviously, and then who makes the offers on the deal.
Is there a preference that you personally have? For example, Ranjan, everybody knows that he loves the commercial conversions and stuff like that. Is there something in particular? I mean, from the sounds of the way you do your mentorship, and you one of the most proudest things that one of your mentees has done is rent to rent. You seem like quite broad in your approach to opportunity.
Yeah, I'm very open-minded, and whether that's property or business, I very much look at the opportunity in isolation, and I give everything a fair assessment. And so, no, I mean, if the opportunity is there, it's with good, solid people, and I can see that opportunity, then and I'm on board with it, then I would act. I would arguably say I would invest in anything that would work. But I do lots of commercial to residential, but also commercial and as well. So I do like that model.
Hotels? Did you do any hotels?
Yeah.
You've got hotels, like service accommodation.
Yeah.
It's been incredibly good to speak with you and to get to know you a little bit better. Just a very quick fire round. What's the best advice that you've ever had?
Never believe anything you hear and only half of what you see.
Good one. Very good one. What's the worst advice you've ever heard?
Oh, God. Worst advice.
Or you've been given?
Anyone saying you can't do something. In fact, that just motivates me to do it even more. So if you've got a dream or you've got a goal that you want to achieve, then it doesn't matter who's on board, as long as you know that you will do all you can to make that happen.
Yeah, it's like challenge accepted.
Yeah.
And So this podcast is called Property People, and you clearly are a very consummate professional in the property space. What sort of characteristics and traits do you think are important to have to be a successful property person?
Balls of steel. No, I mean, yes, you do, but I maybe cut that one. I think you've got to be a people person, 100%. You know, business is all about people, whether that's property or any other. I think you need to be a good negotiator. I think you need to hold yourself accountable, and you need to solve problems. That's what we do every single day. You know, we solve problems.
Absolutely. And the final one is, if people wanted to reach out to you, find out about your mentorship program, find out how to get on, the Angels Property Elevator.
Yep.
How can they find you?
And so Property Elevator Season 6 is out on the 14th of September on Channel 186. It's a great series. I think it will be one of the best yet. So definitely tune into that. We also have propertyelevator.tv website where you can watch past episodes as well and past series. For me personally, just find me on LinkedIn and all of the information is on there. So Hayley Andrews. So I've got, of course, Your Freedom Empire, which is my business and property training organisation. You can pop along to that website and there's lots of information on there.
You certainly are a formidable entrepreneur in the property space, and I've thoroughly enjoyed speaking with you. I hope that we could maybe do this a little bit further down the line, talk about some of the deals that you've done on Property Elevator, and a few of the roundtable discussions that we've got going on in the coming future. Thank you ever so much for joining us.
You're welcome.